with CEOs and millionaires. I've never seen my vision be more crystal clear. Look in the mirror, see the change in who I used to be. I kept going, knew success would come eventually. But ask about me back then, they said I wouldn't make it. Nowadays they doubt less and tend to ask for favors. Poetic music, that's realness, don't let them tell you different. And if you ever lost in doubt, then follow your intuition. These words of wisdom is for those who's trying to find their purpose. Don't be living just to die, cause only death is certain. I'm working hard so I can toast to my accomplishments. Cause see, I lost it all and I ain't been the same since. I'm more focused, more ambitious, more everything. Grew up with nothing, now I appreciate the finer things. I know it's real when at the shows they ask for autographs. And now they know the name, they ain't gotta ask.
All right. So the next guest we have here is a guest that I know from years back. Name's Noushig, and Noushig is from Syria, and she's Syrian, but she is of Armenian descent. So you're gonna have to do a lot of explaining here in a second. But thanks so much for doing this, and I think your story is important to tell because it's a story of many, many people that I think a lot of people don't really realize, like what's happened overall in the world, and as far as like displacement of people out of their homes and not having anything to do with any conflict. You're just having to live in a situation like that. But welcome.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Yeah. So first off, how the heck did Armenians end up in Syria?
Well, it goes back to 1915 when there was a big genocide organized against Armenians, Greeks, and some of Assyrians. Right, just about 1.5 million Armenians they got relocated to different areas in the Middle East. We call it Western Armenia, which is right now in Turkey, closer to Syria on that side. So yeah, they ended up in 1915 or 1916, around that time in Syria. They walked most of the way for days and days and days. There were refugees in Syria. So my grandfather was actually from my dad's side. He was a refugee survivor. He was 7 when he arrived to Syria. He didn't know his name. He was severely traumatized. He couldn't remember his family. And then when he remembered, he said like he had about 9 siblings, and they were all killed during that walk, I guess.
Got it.
And so they had to build themselves up, and they moved cities, and then my mom and dad were born. They were the first generation, and I'm the second generation.
Yeah. And so obviously living in a foreign land as a minority has its troubles. I guess maybe we should explain also that a lot of times people don't know how, the modern Turkey, as far as the boundaries go today, didn't exist in that time. And as they were expanding into what's now Eastern Turkey, a lot of that was Armenian area. And you have to understand the time frame too is World War I. And so Ottoman Empire was still in existence, and they were on the side of the Germans at the time. And with that, they had to ended up with a lot of different things happening, but the Sykes-Picot Agreement arranged new borders along the Turkish border in order for the French and the British to bring out petroleum from the area. And if you look at how the countries are lined up and designed, when you look at Jordan and you look how the British pipeline was going through that little arm on the eastern part of Jordan into the Haifa port to be able to be extracted out from what's now today Iraq and Iran. And then also on the French side was going through northern areas of Syria, through the Lebanon, and also through the coast of Syria as well. So a lot of that stuff has to do with the geopolitics. And as we know, that a lot of people that live in the middle of that don't really have a choice. And can you maybe talk a little bit about Armenian culture and how that differs from all the different other groups around in the area?
Well, in Syria, we do have our own bubble. We go to our own schools, churches. The whole area is the Armenian area. So my mom doesn't speak Arabic at all, even though she was there all her life. So she does not speak any Arabic. Her Arabic is very broken. She went to Armenian schools. She didn't really need to speak the Arabic language. And the government was cool with that. We were protected. We were minority, but we were very much protected when, I'm going to say this, but when Assad's currently dad, he overturned and he ruled, Armenians were very lucky to have him because they were very much protected.
And you're talking about Hafez Assad, who was the father of Bashir Assad.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes, Hafez Assad.
And he ruled from 1970 to about 2000, and then his son took over.
So that's when it was the peak of the Armenians, the business, and Armenians were very well known with handcraft, and they were good in goldsmithing. They just wanted to survive and make some money, I guess, like any other refugee.
Yeah. But they had full citizenship in Syria, correct?
True. Yes. We are Syrian, and we, Syrian, but Armenian Syrian. Yes.
Do you think before that the government honored dhimmi a little bit more than obviously it's honored today, being a protected status? Have you heard of that term before?
Right now, no one's protected.
Right.
They're all on the same level.
And so for those that don't know, dhimmi is a word in Arabic. It means that you're protected, if I'm correct. And basically anybody that's from the Book of Abraham has a special status in Islam. And if you live in an Islamic country, they will omit you from being forced to convert to Islam. And so obviously Armenians are in that status, Christian, Syrians, Yazidis, people of those groups, Jewish, never had to assimilate and convert to Islam, even though they lived in Damascus and other places in Syria. So that rule, however, can be used as you want it to. So obviously it's written in religious law, but depends on how religious a person is and how the rules they look at it, and that's it. Sorry. And then, so how did you assimilate more and learn Arabic more? Was that something that the government did, or is something your family pushed you to do?
Well, it was 100% personal choice. Because I went to Armenian school, we did have to learn a little bit of Arabic as well. And all the subjects, they were pretty much I can say the 60% of the subjects, they were in Arabic at one stage. And then after I went to university, I had to fully speak Arabic. So I spent 1 year, I couldn't speak much. And when I was speaking, I was using the other Arabic, where it's very, very much, you just read and write with that. yeah, but the regular slang, I just couldn't use it because I didn't know how to speak. But then my friends helped me a lot, and my friends at the university, they were from all different cultures and different kind of Arabs or different kind of Christians, and even Kurds.
Yeah. And so do you think, looking back on that, that was the best decision you could have made, like at that time, to learn the language and be more assimilated into the overall country rather than being in your own bubble?
100%. 100%. When you go to a new country, you have to learn the language.
Uh-oh. Sorry, I lost you there. No, I was just asking if you thought that the decision to assimilate more and learn Arabic was a good decision at that time.
It was 100% a great decision. It was one of my great decisions in life to learn Arabic and assimilate in Syrian culture more, because I've learned a lot from the people that I met. They speak the same language. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
And I agree, when you go to a different country, you have to talk their language. You have to adapt to their culture as well. And right now, or even around those times when Armenians were refugees, they assimilated in the culture. They adopted the Arabic culture somehow, but they needed to keep the language. That's the only reason why Armenian had to speak in Armenian among themselves, because they needed to keep the language alive, and they needed to feel like they're Armenian after that traumatizing genocide they had to witness.
Got it. And then, just for people to understand, you mentioned the bubble. What area or what cities, and we can put up a map and talk about it, but essentially what cities are considered like Armenian cities in Syria?
So it's not the whole city, it's just areas in that city. I come from Aleppo, and our areas were we can say Midan, Suleimania, like those areas where all the Armenians, they settled in there after the genocide.
Got it. And so when were you born? Like,
I was born in Syria.
But like, how old are you now?
Oh, I was born on 87, 33. Yeah.
Got it. And so so you were old enough to understand the transfer of power between the father and the son, and did you guys notice a difference in how Syria was being managed after Bashar al-Assad took over the government?
Yeah, I was about 15 years old when Hafez Assad died, and they transferred the power to his son Bashar Assad. Well, we've seen a huge shift of things. Previously, we weren't allowed to have satellite. We were we couldn't communicate to the outside world. We couldn't travel that much, bring like goods from Europe or whatever. That was kind of like not allowed back then. But everyone was living a very good life. Everyone had money. There was no poor in Syria. No beggars. No one is living on the street. Even if you have 20 kids, they can live, and they were not hungry at all. After Bashar came in, he opened up Syria, and the one mistake that he probably made is he opened up too soon to Europe and to Western cultures. He should have make it a little bit more gradually, instead of just opening it up, having internet, having laptops, having computers, having phones. banking system, which we didn't have before. It was only the one bank that we could save our we could go to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of other banks came in, investors from Gulf area, investors from Europe. We would see more European people for coming to Syria for tourism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, around that 10 years, they were the peak in Syria. The businessmen that they had manufacturing companies, they earned a lot, and you could see going from one level to another level in wealth. I mean,
yeah. Did you feel that things were changing more when you were going to university, like as far as the culture, the environment, or was it you could already see it instantly when all this technology and all this investment is coming in? People are probably doing a little bit better, but I mean, obviously, things are changing, like you said, but too fast for the people that have never had it before.
Too fast for the people who never had it before, and also around his dad's time, people were not allowed to. They were allowed, of course, to go to the mosques, but there were only one or two mosques in the whole area. But around Bashar's time, he wanted to make peace with the Muslim Brotherhoods and all those other people, and he allowed to have a lot more mosques. So you'd see 2 mosques in one neighborhood,
mm-hmm.
2, 3, 4, and he did not monitor what the sheikh is speaking. He is talking to people there. So previously his dad would monitor every single word that the sheikh will speak, or even the priest, what would he say. But around Bashar's time, they were more relaxed.
And can you also talk about what makes this government unique in that the tribe and the people that are in charge versus the people that actually are living in Syria as a whole? Like the fact that it's a minority group running and managing the country over Sunni and Shia kind of scenario?
I wouldn't say it made a big difference, but they were hated so much from the Sunnis because they were eventually an Alawi family, which Alawis are well known that they're much more like Christians. They wouldn't wear hijab. They had different cultures, customs. But they didn't like it that they came from a poor family and suddenly they became power. There was also a lot of corruption there in Syria, a lot around his time. Yeah.
And so now you're growing up in Syria. You're slowly assimilating into the regular culture, not just the Armenian culture. And as you're going through that process and you're going to university, tell me a little bit about your experience at university at the time, and then what led up to like 2011.
Well, it was a great time I had in the university. Like any other person who goes to university, experienced all the good things. I was meeting new people, as I said, new cultures, different. Like I didn't know the difference between the Alawi, Sunni, and Shia up until I was 18, and I had to go to university. And then even there, I knew that there is a lot more different groups to Islam than one big group that I thought it is. For me, every single one who spoke Arabic, I considered them as Muslims. But then I was wrong because there are a lot of Christians in Syria. They speak Arabic as well.
Mm-hmm.
We were pretty much free to say whatever we wanted in around that period when we were in the university. And to be honest, no one was complaining about him. But suddenly everyone started complaining, and you could see before 2011, people were very happy with each other. I never felt like I'm an outsider, even though there is always this thing. They call the Armenians not Syrian enough because we don't fully speak the language. But at that time, my Arabic was very good. So never Syrian enough. So, but I never felt that that look in their face. But after 2011, everyone started to tell me that you are Armenian. What do you know? So why are you even talking politics? Why are you even giving your opinion? You're not from this country. You should go back.
Yeah.
That was really sad for me to hear my friends saying that to my face. I was born there. I grew up there. And it's my country, just like anyone else.
Mm-hmm. And so, just for people to reference, like the Tahrir Square in Egypt is going on around the same time, and obviously, people that are in these regimes and in these countries where we have autocrats and dictators. They're afraid. They're afraid that everything is going to come after them in the same way. And so that domino effect, the Arab Spring as we know it today, started off in Tunisia and really kicked off in Egypt, where it became well known around the world. As that time is going on, you're in university. What was that feeling like during that time before the demonstrations started in Syria by itself?
Well, during that period, we would never, I wouldn't think 1% that Syria will have the same fate as Iraq currently, or any of the others like Tunisia or Egypt, because we thought the people are one. And because the mixture of the people in Syria, they're like, as I explained before, they're a big mix of different cultures, different minorities there. We wouldn't think that will happen in Syria, because we were living just fine before that. So why would we now become very different and become strangers to each other?
And so
we just sat there and saw other countries go through the Arab Spring, but at the same time, we would see that there is some things they need to change in order for us to become a better country.
And so with that, Assad gets on TV and talks about being in the state of emergency and that it's going to stay the end of March timeframe. The U.S. kind of gets involved and tries to impose sanctions on Syria to freeze, the assets in those areas. The oil and other things has been banned by the European Union. When did you realize that like things are getting real? Like it's not just like, okay, like it's not just Egypt, it's not Tunisia. Like this is happening in our neighborhoods now in the same way.
Yeah. So when we first heard about the protesting in Daraa, it was kind of shock for us. Oh, so what are they protesting about? And then we heard the backstory about it, and we were like, okay, they do have some. They make some sense. What they want is okay to speak out, but then around the whole region got very kind of like fired up quickly, and they froze all our US dollar bank accounts, everything. So whatever I had in the bank account, I had to convert it to Syrian, and the Syrian pound was falling. So it started from there, and then I started feeling like, okay, maybe there is more into this. And as a group of friends, we were always speaking and about what's happening, and when it might end, and what the government will do to contain this and not make it much worse. But obviously it took a wrong turn. And around 2013, well, nothing was happening in Aleppo until end of 2012, early 2013. And one of my friends died in the first explosion in Aleppo. So that's when it really hit me, and we said, "This is real. We're going into a civil war soon."
And so, with that, I know that obviously, for people that don't know, Aleppo is what, like 3-hour drive from Damascus?
No, so it will be about 6-hour drive.
6 hours, got it. And so, obviously, it's kind of in the middle, in the north area of Syria. Damascus is more to the south, close to the Jordan and Israeli border. With that, there were a lot of referendums to try to change the constitution to have opposition parties in the government, but Bashar was not stepping down. And then obviously the U.S. got more involved, and, President Obama is saying that if they are to use, force against the rebels in certain ways, that there would be a red line, so to speak, that the U.S. will intervene. That didn't happen in that way, obviously. And do you feel that the U.S. let the people of Syria down in that way, where they made a statement like that and then actually didn't follow through on it?
Well, personally, I wouldn't want anyone to come from a different country and make rules in my country. The people and its own leaders will know the best of that country. So I'm not a big supporter of America or US intervening in other countries' business.
That makes sense. Even after the alleged chemical attacks, because that was the main thing that they were talking about in that sense, and where it gets to a point where, like, if it's small arms and there's somewhat of a fight, between two factions, when chemical weapons come into play, that seems to be the stopping point for a lot of other countries in a sense like that. And so that's kind of the reason why I was asking. But I'm in total agreement with you.
I get what you're saying, but I do personally believe, and that's the belief of a lot of Syrians as well, that those chemical weapons did not appear by themselves, and those people who owned them at that period, they had a strong connections with Western countries. So I highly doubt that they took it from the Syrian government, and those chemical weapons happened from Syrian government.
Got it. Okay. And so now we're going around. 2013 is a lot of back and forth between the West and Syria, trying to come up with some kind of negotiation of a truce between rebels that are backed by Western countries and Assad's government, and he wasn't backing down. When was it a point where you felt that you had to leave?
It was when I lost everything. I kept saying that I'm not leaving the country. This is my country, and I love it, for a couple of years. For 1 year or so after the war broke up. But then when I lost my car that I just paid off, and then I saw a lot of my friends die when a rocket fell from the sky on the university where my sister and I were taking exams. Half of the university half of the people that they were taking exams, they were dead. And they said it fell by mistake from the Assad's government, and that's when it hit me. So both sides are just about the same. So there is no right or wrong at this point. They both will destroy the country.
Yeah.
And I do not want to be part of this. And yeah, the mortar shells, like, it was hitting Aleppo and every single area in Aleppo every day. Like you'd count them, sometimes about 100, 150, and you'll hear them one after the other, killing innocent people. They don't want to do anything with this war. It's not their war. I was just so sad and frustrated. I just couldn't do anything else. I had to leave for a better life for myself, my family.
Yeah. And so did you leave before or after ISIS, also known as Daesh?
I left during ISIS.
During ISIS. Can you talk about a little bit about how maybe they came to be so powerful in that way during that same time where the rebels are fighting, the Assad government's fighting, and then all of a sudden, like, a third group of people that have a totally different mindset have shown they might have already been there. Some of them might have already been there, but now you're getting a lot of foreign assistance from the outside that is propping up this Wahhabi Tikfiri ideology right in the middle of Syria. How do you think that happened?
Well, we suddenly felt there are those people in Syria. We didn't think that they are in Syria. We heard about them from the news, just like anyone else. But then when we saw them, I think they were backed from other countries as well. Also, the rebels thought that ISIS might be very good ally for them at one stage. When it was the first time for them, so they thought that ISIS is very good for them. But then soon after that, they realized that this is not what they want. The Syrian rebels wanted only a change in the structure of the country, but ISIS had a different agenda, which they did not agree on. That's why right now it's a huge mess. People, they don't know what they want, what the Syrians want.
Mm-hmm. And so it was a lot of culture clash between normal Syrians and a lot of outside influence, basically.
Correct, yeah.
So what do you remember the day you left?
I left around 2013. I think it was in winter time, late winter or early winter. I think it was November, late November. I left Syria to Lebanon and from Lebanon to Iraq. But before that, I had to try 2 times before I could be able to escape from Aleppo, because Aleppo was surrounded by ISIS back then. So the third time was luckily it was the last time that I could be out.
So who left with you?
No one. I left alone. From my family, I left alone because I was old enough back then to be able to travel by myself. But if I went with my whole family, there is a very big risk that my whole family will be executed just because we're Christian. And if they read my name, my ID, they'll find out that I'm Armenian.
Yeah. So talk me through getting to Lebanon. So you leave. Do you drive? Do you Is there a system in place for people that are already leaving to get out that you have to utilize? Did you just kind of figure it out on your own? Like talk me through this process.
So there was a shuttle. It accommodated, I think it was up till 15 people. They had a phone number. I found it on Facebook, and I just gave them a ring. At that point, I was so desperate to go out. I lost a lot of my friends for war, and I just didn't want to die then. So I gave them a call. The first time they said, when it's safe, we're going to give you a call back, and you can just be ready whenever we call you. They called me the week after, and I was already ready. I hopped on the shuttle, and then he drove off. He drove off to outer areas of Aleppo, but along that journey we met a lot of ISIS as well. But I had to cover myself up, wear a full himar and hijab, and then so no one will recognize me. And luckily, the third time they did not ask for my ID. So I could escape Aleppo. I went to Damascus with that shuttle, and from Damascus it was safe to take the bus to go to Lebanon. In Lebanon, I have my auntie's family. So as soon as I arrived, my cousins came to take me from there.
And so when you mentioned first and second time, so you tried 2 times before, they checked your ID and looked at your name and told you to go back?
True, yeah. So the first time I tried a few days earlier than that. The first time there was a clash between the ISIS or the Syrian Free Army and the normal army, the Syrian army. So he drove back. I couldn't go. I was devastated, to be honest. I thought that this is it, and I'm out, and I wouldn't go back again. But yeah, so the second time it was a little bit more dramatic. We drove off, and we stopped at a place where ISIS is. It's kind of like a checkpoint for them. One of them hopped on and checked the IDs. He didn't check my ID, but because I'm a woman, he put me on the side. And then another guy came in and asked for my ID. That's when I knew that I'm in trouble. So, but one of the guys next to him, I could recognize his face. He's one of my university friends. So when that happened, I just lift up my the faces scarf that I had, and he immediately recognized me. And he was very shocked that I'm there. And he actually spoke to one of them, and he said, "That's from my family, and you need to let her go." There were another 2 girls, unfortunately, with me. They stayed there. I have no idea what happened to them. They could have been raped. They could have been killed. I never heard back from that.
Right. Wow.
And we had to go back. So I went back, but at this point I was thinking about the third time. Do I go? Do I stay? I'm dead anyways. So what am I going to lose? So if they shoot me when I'm trying to escape, or if they fire up, they shoot me while I'm walking in the street. So it's the same fate for me. So let me try and see what happens. And luckily, the third time, I was able to escape.
And so, obviously, was it a mix of people at these checkpoints between locals and foreigners, or was it all locals that they were using?
No. So a few of them, they were talking in a different language, which I did not understand at all. After I heard from the media, they might be Shishanis, and they do have the full beard, the ginger beard. that Shishanis are very well known of. Yeah. A few of other people. No one spoke English, though. They were speaking this other language and Arabic, but the Nahawi Arabic, which is the one that you just read and write.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so you make it to Damascus, you get to Lebanon and cross the border, you're with family. Why Kurdistan if you're already in Lebanon?
Well, the Syrians were not living very good in Lebanon. Unfortunately, there was a lot of discrimination against the Syrians.
Yeah. And just I just want to say something real quick. So just to be understood, I think Lebanon's a country of like 6 million people only, and 1 million Syrians came into Lebanon, and a small country like that can't take on almost 20% of their population as refugees in that sense. And so there's a lot of negative bias against the people that are coming there, just trying to live, not even live their life. They don't care about, they just want to stay alive. And you're a drain on the economy, resources, and everything else. It's not that Lebanon was Dubai or anything like that before the people came there. So that obviously plays a big part into the negative aspects of the people coming over. And so leaving Beirut, or did you go somewhere else?
No, I stayed in Beirut.
Okay. And so what made you decide on Kurdistan? It seems like you're going in the way that the stuff is actually happening.
Yeah, so I heard about Kurdistan from few friends that were already there. That it is a good place, no trouble there. People are very nice. They're welcoming, and also if you're Syrian, they do not have a problem with you. It's not like Lebanon when you go apply for a job, they give you the half a salary that you have to get it. So you get a full salary, you're respected and everything. So I thought about it, and a month or two later, I applied and got my visa, and I flew off and never went back to Lebanon.
By the way, did you finish university, or did all of this stop it?
Yeah, I was doing my second year of masters of economics, business and economics.
Got it.
In Aleppo University.
So you make it to Kurdistan, and is your family still in Syria during this entire time you're going through this process?
Yes.
And
yes.
So what,
Mom and Dad and my sister, they are in Syria.
So what did they think of this plan? Or did you really tell them?
About Iraq? About going to Iraq?
Or about any of it?
They didn't really know what I'm thinking about. They thought that I'm going to go and live with my auntie for a while and try to assimilate in the Lebanese culture, given that we do have a fair bit of family living there as well. Everyone left from Aleppo, went to Lebanon and stayed there. So I had pretty much my 90% of my family and relatives, they were living at that time in Lebanon. So my dad didn't think that I'm going to be going to a different country from there. So yes, I did hide that from him because he would never think that he would never allow me, let's say, to go to Kurdistan by myself.
Yeah.
And he was not happy that I'm leaving, but he couldn't make the decision to say no. Because he knows if I stay and I'm still going to university and I'm going to work, one day I might not come back home.
Right.
So he had to be fair there, and I made my own choice, and he was supportive, but I just couldn't tell him that I'm going to Iraq.
Yeah. I mean, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just one quick question. what is what does Armenia, the country, think of the diaspora, and how does that work in a sense of, did they try to help Armenians get out of the situation during that time? Thinking about all the people that are still there, even today, maybe even, are they working on trying to get Armenians back into Armenia or anything like that?
They kind of like, they do have an agenda of replacing or relocating Armenians around the world back to, especially in the Middle East and around those trouble areas, back in Armenia. Saying that Armenia has a population of about 3 million. So it's not a big country. If we check all the Armenian the diaspora in Armenia, Armenian diaspora, sorry, they're about 7-8 million. So the country is the economy and the country is not big enough for that. Also, we will have a similar issue like we had with the Lebanese people, because the region is not stable. Also saying that the economy is not that great. Coming from a different, yes, you are Armenian, but coming from a different country, doesn't matter if you have money or not. Trying to make your own business and work, and you're taking a lot of opportunities from the locals. Mm-hmm. It's not something will sit well with anyone. So it was a little bit challenging for a lot of people that they tried to relocate in Armenia. I personally know about 40% of my family, they currently live in Armenia. They're doing well. Actually, they're doing very good. The kids are going to schools and they're Armenian. So, yeah, why not? Yeah. But Armenia, after I left, during that period when the war started, I do know that Armenia could not reach out to Armenians in Aleppo to help, but they did send care packs, and they did send kind of like food and supplies, especially around those days where we did not have electricity, we did not have internet. At some point we were staying in the shelter for about 20, 25, 28 days. The church is very close to where I live, at least. So we went and we got our care packs from them.
Got it. So Kurdistan.
Before moving on to the next topic, Armenia did send 2 planes free of charge after I left for the Armenians who are willing to relocate to Armenia. So, and that's when the 40% of my family, they hopped on the plane and they left.
Got it. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's tough. Where do most Armenians live that aren't in Armenia, in the U.S.?
That would be in Russia. I believe there are over 5 million Armenians living in Russia. And then the next high one was in the Middle East, but unfortunately right now there are a lot less than that. But right now the second one is in the US, yes.
Got it. So you left in 2013 and didn't look back, basically. You get to Kurdistan, to Erbil, and you're there and you see and other people that have kind of done the same thing you have. You're seeing, obviously, Kurdish people are very hospitable. Tell me what your initial reaction was, like being obviously in Iraq, Kurdistan, northern Iraq, and then talk me about the feeling that you had up until Mosul.
Well, when I arrived, I thought it's going to be the same like Lebanon, but it was way more different. Like people were asking me how I was, if I needed help, if I needed a hand looking for a job, looking for a place to live. Even a person who I don't really know, they offered me a job in their project. So I went, I think it was my third day when I arrived to Kyrgyzstan. I found a job and I started working with them. Up until I found another one and I was okay enough to move by my own. But those people, I really appreciate their help, their support in everything. I didn't have a car. I had a little amount of clothes on me. I kind of I had nothing. I only had my mobile phone and my university degree.
Yeah.
A little amount of money as well. That's, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I had all.
Having been there myself, I was in the army at one time, and Kurdish people, I have a deep appreciation for Kurdish people, and the fact that they are 20 million plus people and don't have a country of their own is crazy to me. And they're just genuine people for the most part, and I always remember that, having been there myself. Never met somebody that didn't give you respect automatically, they didn't look at you as a outsider trying to do something in some weird way. You were there, you were treated like a friend from the beginning. You're getting chai, you're doing this, you're doing that, and it always stuck with me, like the customs and the culture very much, So you get there, you're kind of integrating into the life, and did you have a plan when you got there? Was it just like, I just need to take a breather, I need to figure out my life in some way? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do after you got to a place that was normal?
When I felt safe at that first week when I arrived to Kurdistan, I had no plans at all. I did not have a plan for my future, where I want to be next, if I'm okay here, what am I going to be working. I had zero expectations, no plan at all. I was so happy that I survived and I'm in a different country. And at that stage, Kurdistan was very, it was a safe place. Well, no one was bothering me, as you said. Also, politically, it was safe. Like there were no missiles or rockets falling from the sky. So yeah.
Yeah, and for the people that don't know, Erbil is an old Turkmen town way back when. And the Turkmen were across the area, but the Kurds slowly migrated into the city hundreds of years, and it became a very Kurdish town. And there's also different groups in the area that came there as well. So you have actually a Christian part of town. You have a citadel, which is a big hill with a castle on it in the middle of the city, which I think is pretty cool. It's a lot of history around the area. And it's a beautiful area of the country because it goes from high desert into mountain region. And so you have a lot of the areas where you can drive, and if you didn't know where you were in the world, you'd think you'd be like in the Rocky Mountains or someplace. You could have skiing there. You could have a bunch of things that I think would be amazing to have in Kurdistan in that way. When you kind of felt comfortable there, I mean, then it's 2014, and all of a sudden ISIS is rolling through Shingal and Sinjar area and slowly moving to Mosul. What was the town like during that time frame?
it was kind of like a ghost town. Everyone freaked out. All the expats were leaving, and whoever couldn't leave was the Syrians because they just can't go back. Whatever is happening right now, it's in Mosul. It's not in Erbil.
Yeah.
So let's say wherever we are. But I definitely panicked. I do remember that I was at one stage thinking if my decision, my choice was the right one, because they're kind of like a few meters away, knocking on my door. What am I going to do? Am I going to have to wear the full cover again so I won't get killed or I won't get kidnapped? Also, I heard about what's happening in the Yazidi towns. It just broke my heart, and it was the same. It was a deja vu.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was devastated. Just didn't know what I want to do at that stage. I thought, yeah, the best thing to do is apply to a European country or to apply to a Western country to try to move away from all these conflicts, and I do not believe that it will stop soon.
And I guess maybe going back to the reason why you went to Kyrgyzstan, why didn't you try to get on one of the flotillas to go to Greece and go this way instead of going the other way?
That was never my choice. I refused to illegally migrate to somewhere else because it just didn't feel right for me. People were dying on boats. They were causing troubles for other countries. They were looked down at one stage from different countries. Like, why are they here? What do they want? We don't know what to do with them. So it was just that chaos I wasn't okay with. Also, the long trip that you have to take from walking from Greece to different European countries, kind of like other illegal stuff that they were doing, like faking IDs, hopping on a train, not getting a ticket because you get caught. The police was chasing them up. I just didn't want to be in that situation. I had already enough with in Syria with what happened a few times, and I lost my friends, and I've also been in situations that a mortar shell was hit very close to me, and I was so lucky that I was alive. So I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to lose my life on the way to Europe.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think a lot of people also fail to realize that a lot of people simply didn't have, like they say that almost 6 million people were displaced in the country by itself, and that almost 5 million left Syria. And so with that, people have to understand the people that were displaced that couldn't go somewhere else and had to stay in Syria, it's because of economics. The people, a lot of people, that they don't understand that the people that were on those boats that were going to Greece, that were going to other places, this was Syria's middle class. They had just enough to get from one point to the other, and they were hoping and praying to get to the best countries possible and not end up in Greece or Bulgaria or some of the places where the conditions were just as bad and sometimes worse than what they left. And that speaks to the chance, I think a lot of people, even just to immigrate in a real sense, you have to come from a certain class to be able to get to the next place to go. And then you're going to have a period where you're going to be at the bottom when you're an immigrant, but you're just hoping for your family to have a better life for the next generation. So a lot of times people forget that. They just think that, oh yeah, a bunch of poor people got on a boat and tried, like, no. There was a lot of people with degrees. There was a lot of people that are working professionals that just were able to just get by enough to get their family or themselves out of there, to hope that they have some kind of normal life in the future. So I just wanted to make sure that people understand that. With Mosul coming and you said like a lot of people left town, and obviously people were on pins and needles. And to be fair, just to make sure that people understand, Mosul is a city of 2 million people, and a lot of history, a lot of different things had happened, right? And you have to understand the context of why that city fell as easy as it did was because Baghdad didn't care about Mosul as much as it should have, because of it being a Sunni town and Baghdad is a Shia town. And so they put very little resources there to protect it and kind of left the city to fight for themselves. They didn't have enough of the army there to help protect it because they're dealing with their own stuff in the south, and they were able to kind of just take over the city with comparatively very little fighting back, and they took over the town. And 2 million people, that's the size of Denver. Like, you have to understand that for the people listening, because my show is based in Denver, but like the entire Denver and the surrounding areas. And not only that, the history of like Assyrians and Arab Christians in general, there's a lot of stuff that was just simply destroyed that was from 700 AD, kind of time frames, and that doesn't exist anymore in that same way. There was just blowing things up, from statues to artifacts to other things, and it's coming, from a Christian background and living in this area. Do you ever feel that Christians will ever want to live in this area again, or are they just slowly going to go in other places that are more acceptable?
No, I think part of ISIS plan, or part of that big plan for us, is to push the Christians to migrate to other countries than the Middle East, to make Syria, Lebanon, wherever the Christians were settled before, 100% Muslim area.
And is there part of you, in the long run, do you feel that that's for the best? Or do you feel that the diversity is what made, like, for example, Syria unique? The fact that you had a bunch of people all together in that way?
Of course, 100%. The diversity, what makes the country much better. When you understand each other, you have a great tie between your cultures. Every single culture brings a different color, let's say, to that country, and it's very it's unique, and it's very essential for each country. If you look at Australia right now, they have, or we have here, a lot of people from different backgrounds, different religion, but everyone is living next to each other, and we're all happy. But every single culture brings their own color to this country, which is essential.
So, like, living in a place where you are now, and where the nationalism takes over tribalism, do you think that'll ever happen in the Middle East, where you are whatever your nationality is first and not the tribe, where people look at you as a particular person from that country in that way, the same way like people generally think American or whatever,
Well, unfortunately, after the war, people went back to being more strict. They don't want to allow other cultures to live among them. They kind of want to impose that mentality on you too. So I do not think they'll work if the diversity will work right now in Syria or in Middle East.
Yeah, no, I unfortunately I agree with you on that. I think that when you go through something like as traumatic as this, like your trust level in others that don't look like you, that don't think like you, that don't understand you exactly in the same way, you just become primal in nature and you have to become defensive. And that's kind of the way I feel the entire region has become right now. If you don't look, sound like me, or act like me, then you don't belong here, unfortunately. So you're there and you're starting to apply for what would you call it? Political asylum, or just as the refugee status? Like I don't know the proper name or the terminology, but you're trying to basically apply to live in some kind of European countries of some kind and doing it in the formal way as opposed to just showing up and saying, help me.
Yeah. So I've done my research. I've spent a bit more than 8 months to do my recent research how to migrate to a different country as a refugee status, but legally. And I had to go and register with UN first, and there were a few more steps involved. But I had to wait. A few years until I heard back from anyone. Even when I registered with the UN, they said they're gonna relocate me to a different country. But I do remember it was over 3 years. I did not hear back from UN at all. So that's when I lost hope, and I sent my file by myself to the Australian embassy in Jordan. I had all my IDs, my degree, and also my sister's paperwork on me. So I did send it to them, and a few years later, let's say a little bit more than 2 years later, I heard back from the embassy. I still remember it like yesterday. It was 9 a.m. in the morning. And when I lost hope and I thought, like, no one will take us, we're going to stay here, and ISIS one day will kill us all. So that morning, I was so depressed. I was at work. I got this phone call around 9 in the morning and just picked up. There was a lady asking me about my name and if I'm still in Iraq. And I told her yes. But it was, I used my phone number for my work too. So I was very shocked for someone to ask me, because I totally forgot about that I even applied to Australia. So when the lady approached me and she told me that I do have an interview next week for my sister and I. And then she hung up. I do remember sitting on the stairs at work, crying for half an hour, because I did not see this happening at all. I at that point, I just lost hope.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming, but I do believe that there were happy tears, like hope. Finally, I found my hope again.
And how would you... I already kind of know the answer to this, but I wanted to hear it from you. How would you rate the process for people that are coming from war-torn countries to try to do it the right way? How do you rate the UN's process or the other countries' process in that whole time, and the mechanisms that were there, the research that you did? Like, give me some insight on, like, do you feel kind of betrayed? Give me something in a sense of, like, that process, how long it took. When you think about giving it a rating altogether, do you think it was okay? Do you think it was shit? Do you think it was whatever?
It was very poor, very, very poor. When I applied, I never heard back from them. No one contacted me for 3 years.
Yeah.
Especially UN. I felt like a number on UN's records. No one cares about me. well, UN is a well known that it's a big organization. They care about the refugees. They do a lot for they do a lot to help other people. I had such big hopes from this organization. When I did not hear back from them for about 3 years, I was just like, what is this? This is a big lie. They do not help. And then after that, when I had to wait for another few years until I heard back from the Australian embassy, I was a bit disappointed too, because I kind of stayed. I waited for about 6-7 years for my about 6 years for my to be able to migrate to another country, while other people, they're just crossing the borders, hopping on a boat, and if they're lucky enough, they're getting into Europe, and within a month or two, they're getting like a clear status to live in Europe. So I thought at that point, I'm the wrong one. I had to wait 6 years for nothing, and I wasted my time. I wasted like a great time of my life on just waiting and hoping that the system will work. So yeah, I kind of feel betrayed that I did the right thing, and I waited for that long.
Looking back on it now, do you regret playing by the rules?
Not even a single minute. It was if I did not abide by the rules, I wouldn't have had I wouldn't come to Australia with a refugee status, which I have the full rights of an Australian citizen, but I just can't vote. I do have the government support. I do have a Medicare system, which is paid, or if anything happens to me and if I need to get rushed to a hospital, it's paid by the government. I got the support of the organizations, of the governmental organizations, of course. They even put us for 1 month in a hotel, and I do remember the person who was in charge of my group. He came in, he handed over 2 bags to my sister and I, full of food, anything you think of a person will need for about a month. So that was, I felt so lucky. I felt like I'm a human again. Someone cares about me. So I felt like this country treats their people really good. So if I had doubts for those 6 years that I've done the wrong thing, around that moment when I arrived, I was 100% sure that I've done the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you recommend? I give you a free microphone to the UN. What would you recommend going through that process that they do better?
At least contacting those people who are registered in your system and ask them every now and then if they are suffering, if they need help. Obviously, you do get that kind of follow-up with you when you're living in a refugee camp, but if you're living outside of that refugee camp, you're forgotten. So just think about a little bit more of those people, that they are, yes, working, doing okay, but they are alone. They do need your support as well. Just communicate back with them, saying where are we in the process, if we do have any luck to relocate somewhere else. Just that follow-up with those people, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's got to be, after everything you went through to get to Kyrgyzstan and then not to hear from anybody for 3 years is insane. And just to put it in perspective, like the rest of the world right now has been kind of on hold, let's say for 15 months, right? Overall, maybe actually it's only February right now, so a year. you've been living what people have been feeling for 7 fucking years. It's insane. Like not knowing when your life is going to be back to normal, not knowing whether or not you might get sick or something else happen to you in your life in that way. And it's just, and that's the reason why I wanted to talk to you, because I think that people forget a lot about the things that have happened here recently, and they don't understand. I think they have more empathy now, like they understand, like, what's it feel like to be in limbo in your life for a year? Well, we've been living it, like your worlds are colliding, right? Like you're lucky enough that you were able to get to where you are today, right? But I mean, people are getting annoyed because they have to work and their kids are at home doing school at the same time, like way we're talking right now, and there's a lot of noise. That's nothing compared to like what you had to go through. Nothing. Like
no. For 6-7 years, no, that's nothing. I have been through COVID here in Australia as well, and I did not complain once because it wasn't an unusual thing for me. The uncertainty and anxieties, all that, thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, if we're going to be in a lockdown again, or are we going to be sick, or when is the vaccine happening? If the government is putting a curfew there and people are not happy with that. And I was looking at them and saying, we had curfews every day for about 2 years in Syria, and I was not allowed to go out after 6 until 6 till 8 in the morning. So you can't complain for a curfew of 5 hours or 6 hours a day. That's okay. You're still free. You're still living. It's just a period, and it's gonna pass. And it's a very short period. And look at Australia now. We don't have COVID. I live in Victoria, so Victoria was in one of those the COVID hotspots. Right now, we don't really have COVID much in the state. It's all coming from the hotel quarantine. People who are trying to get in Australia again. Mm-hmm. Those are the few cases that we have right now. But although for the 9 months, we've been through some tough times, yes, but it wasn't tougher than what I've been through for those 6-7 years.
Yeah.
It's just nothing. It's just nothing.
So you get the call, you go to the interview. What are you thinking as you're going in there? Like, you feel confident that you're going to get it? Do you feel like, what are you feeling in those moments before you go and talk to somebody basically about the biggest change in your life ever?
I didn't think I'm gonna get it, and I did not think that I'm not gonna get it, to be honest. And I went there with uncertainty again, with no plan, no expectations. I was like, I've been living like this for 6 years, so let's try if what's gonna happen. So during the interview, they asked me a lot of questions, of course, what happened and how did I end up in Iraq. And from there, they did ask me if I do work. And also they asked me about my working history, about my experience, and also what qualifications do I have. And they did the same with my sister. And they made a quick decision that we are accepted based on we can assimilate in the Australian culture and Australian society pretty easy, given that we do speak a bit of English as well.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And so you get accepted. How long did it take you to get to Australia after you got the acceptance?
It did take me about 8 months.
Okay.
So from the first interview to when they handed over our tickets, it took me 8 months. But during that period, if you remember, the airport was closed for 5-6 months. So it was getting delayed, and I was so impatient at that time. Like, I was so feeling unlucky because when they accepted me, now we don't have an airport to fly. So I was very disappointed.
Well, I know some other people used to drive to Turkey to go to the regional airport there and then fly out of there. But I mean, obviously, you're getting a ticket paid for by somebody else. You can't really be picky.
Yeah, we did not have any sponsor, so we're sponsored by the government. Well, if you're sponsored by someone else or your family member is living in Australia, yes, you can do that. But we that was not recommended for.
Yeah, and just to give context to why the airport was closed, the Kurdish area in Iraq is an autonomous area, and they had a lot of political discussions with Baghdad over oil revenue and how that money is split up. That didn't go over really well with Baghdad, and they limited the flights and closed down the international airport to kind of boycott the Kurdish politics in that time frame. So that was what, 2018?
I do believe it was end of 2017, early 2018.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense.
Or early 2018. Not really sure. Yeah, but yeah, around 2018 it was closed for 6 months.
Yeah, I just remember talking with people about that. That's why.
Yeah.
So you finally get there. What was the integration process like when you got to Australia? So you land in like Sydney or someplace and then get to hang out and...
No, so we landed in Tasmania.
Okay.
Tasmania is a different island to the mainland. I kind of did not feel like Australia in Tasmania, given that it's such a small place with unique people, all Aussies, of course, but lovely people though. We stayed for a month in Tasmania in a hotel, and then I started looking for jobs. My sister looked for universities to continue her studies, and then I kind of felt like it's a very limited here in Tassie, so we had to make the choice to move again to mainland. At that time, I did not know anyone in Australia, so we kind of packed our luggage and went to Victoria, and we picked Melbourne, given that it has the best ranking or high ranking for the university for my sister, and a little bit more jobs, and it's affordable to live here in Melbourne. And if we're gonna pick between New South Wales and Victoria, New South Wales and Sydney is very expensive, so I just couldn't afford that. So we went to Melbourne. We contacted a church in Melbourne. So they gave us a kind of like a free accommodation for about a month until we can find a place. It was very nice of them. Even though it's not an Armenian church, it's still a church. So they helped us. They helped a lot of other people from different backgrounds and different religion as well. You don't have to be Christian to earn a place in that accommodation. So stayed there for a month, and then luckily we found a house and moved there. But the government helped us a lot, and they all the refugees, they get allowance every fortnight, a certain amount of money just to it's not a big money, so you can go and spend it crazily. No, it's just tight enough to put a roof on your head and to keep you cool, I guess.
Yeah. And then what did the government do as far as, like, I know I can only speak from other places that I know, English classes, maybe cultural kind of classes on like do's and don'ts in Australia or anything like
yeah, so that was the do's and don'ts. We got them before we landed into Australia. There was a 3-day kind of like a workshop. The Australian embassy organized it for everyone who was traveling to Australia. They kind of told us about their culture. They told us about the Indigenous people here in Australia, and what happened, and also how to rent, where to go to rent, and what is a bond for, how do you pay for it. It was kind of a full-on 3 days, but for people who don't know English, that was that was a great deal for them, because I do remember a lot of people, they written down all those words so they can use them in future. Also how to get an electricity, how to get your gas set up. What do you say when you go, when you're looking for houses? And also when we arrived, we went to a workshop for a week or 10 days, for professional people, of course, how to set yourself up for an interview in Australia, given that we don't have an Australian experience. Australian experience is a big thing to get accepted in workplaces. If you don't know the culture and workplace culture, the Aussie one, they kind of avoid hiring you. But if you answer to everything, if you answer to their questions professionally, and also if you have the experience, you're not going to find any trouble. I did not find a trouble finding a job here. I think it was my 3rd month after I settled down, got my house. I started working. I even started volunteering because I was a bit bored. I went to English classes. Also, it's a program. It goes on for 5 years. If you don't know English, they call it English as a second language. They tested me and they said you do need that last level for your professional work, and also all the Aussie slang. You have to kind of know them, because the slang here is a big thing. If you don't know them, you don't know what's going on. You're not gonna get what they're saying. It's very different to English.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine. Sometimes, like even though we speak, English. Like I went to South Africa last year, and their accent sometimes difficult to understand. But Afrikaans, I can understand some of it because of German and Dutch. And so with that, it's like, okay, you might have said something like the word, but it might mean something different. And it was like really tough to figure that out at times. But most people speak English well enough where you can get around, at least where the old British Empire used to be. So that's good. And so with that, do they have any programming from the government to do job placement for people like you that come with experience, degrees, and things like that?
Yes, they do. They do call them job seeker. The job seeker is a program for anyone, Australians and the refugees, that they are on government benefits, like I was at the beginning. They give them fortnightly payment. So if you don't have an injury and you do have the right level of English, they do help you to find work for you. Actually, it's a requirement that you apply for jobs every day for 5 different jobs, for 5 different jobs a week minimum, and you have to report it. So if you work on site but you're not earning enough, you still have to report that money as well. you still get the benefit from the government, but also the job seeker will help you to find a job. So I do remember getting called for a few interviews from job seeker, but it was just an entry level. A few other jobs like cleaning, you know. But it's okay for people who don't know English at the start, and then you can build yourself up from there. It's not a shame to start there.
And so, what does your daily life look like now? Like, what kind of job do you have? What does your personal life look like? Do you have friends now that you hang out with on the regular? Do you know any other Armenians there or any Syrians? Like,
there are a few Armenians. I got in contact with them. I do go and dance with them. There is a dancing group, Armenian dancing group.
Okay.
I go and dance with them every once a week. Unfortunately, due to COVID, that has stopped, but hopefully soon we'll be able to go back there. There is, everything I was doing in Syria, I was able to do it again. Just a little gathering, little cultural celebration, that Armenian have. I can still enjoy that with my friends here. Also, I do have a lot of friends from different backgrounds, from work, from the gym, from the I did try a lot of other places so I can meet up with friends, meet up with other people, like to make some friends, because I did not know anyone in Australia when I arrived. So, and then I did meet a few people at my first work, where I stayed there for a year. Was lucky enough to get that job, although I don't have a production background, but I was always in supply chain. So they gave me the job and they said, we're going to test you if you're good enough, so you can get the permanent position. It was the third week, I do remember, I've got offered the permanent position. I was so proud of myself, even though I've never worked in production before, but I got the whole, it's what I studied. It's what I studied when I was doing my master's, overseas experience as well. So from there, it was in a regional Victoria. That's the only reason why I left that job. And I got offered, actually I was headhunted from the same recruiter to go to a different company, which is a big company here in Australia. It also has its branches in US and all over the world. It's a well-known company.
Got it.
So I've been working with them for about a year and a half now, and already got promoted last week. And I think I'm really happy here, really doing good, learning new things, of course. Personally, I met someone as well, so I'm there. Life is good right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this to many people, but if anybody deserves to have a little bit of good life, I think it's you, for sure, after everything that's happened.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you feel that Australia is going to be your forever home?
I believe so. I am in love with Australia. It's beautiful. The system is great. It's just a lucky land, and I happened to land on it.
Yeah, it's one thing the British were really good at, is picking spots with good land and good ports.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, so green. Yeah.
I wasn't able to be down there, but my brother lived down there for like 2 years, 3 years, and he was on an agriculture visa where you basically go work on a farm or something like that for 2-3 months, and then you can do what other job you want. And he loved it. He's now back in Europe and stuff. But if there's somebody out there that is still in a position of, conflict, they're just kind of in the middle. They don't really care about sides. They don't care about anything else, in the same position that you were kind of in. What would your advice be to somebody that is still kind of stuck in a country or an area of the world that just isn't, there's no future for them? What would you recommend a person to do if they can do something?
I just say it's not worth it. So if you're not living your life and you're not living the life that you want, you can try and make it different for yourself. If you can get out of that situation, that would be ideal. But if you can't, just live your life happy and no regrets. Even during the war, at some stage, we were living our lives and not thinking about what's happening around us. Because, around those years, they were enough to train us to not think about next minute what's going to happen. Just enjoy your moment.
And what do you say to the people back in the old country today about your experience? Do you try to push them to leave as well? What's your thought on the people that stayed?
I wouldn't push my opinion on anyone to leave the country. It's a beautiful country. I would never even would have imagined that I would be leaving Syria, growing up. But people are very attached to the country as well. It doesn't matter what's your background, where you come from. You still were born there, raised there. You don't want to leave. I totally understand this. Like my dad is one of those who doesn't want to leave. He built himself up, and he saw everything getting destroyed from those beautiful history of Syria. The Palmyra, or the old town of Aleppo, where it was built in the 800s or 900s.
Right.
It was very sad, but if you don't want to leave, I can't say anything. I just say good luck.
Yeah.
But try to, for the people in power, try to be better. Try to make something different that those poor people can live, can enjoy their lives. It's not only you what matters. It's those people. Like we do have, at one stage, we did have 25 million, 28 million Syrians living there. But right now, it's a lot less than that. So it's not only you. There are like 20 other million living with you. So stop being selfish and listen to each other.
Yeah. No, I can't agree more with that. I mean, it's everywhere in the same way, from the powers around, even in Western countries right now, are not the same. The systems are slowly going in a different direction than what we're used to, and I think it takes people like you and your story to make sure that we don't forget. Without the people, it doesn't exist. The spirit of where you come from doesn't exist without the people, Other than that, it's just land. It's just lines on a map. But what makes you who you are is your culture, your identity, who you relate to, what you value. And that's the most important thing. And I think sometimes our leaders forget that. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know there's quite a bit of time difference with us, but I really think that your story is going to wow people in many different ways. And I've known you for a while, and I'm just so happy that things have turned out in a good way for you, and that you are able to live a normal life after everything that's happened to you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'll normally what I've been doing is just putting out the audio first, and then later on when I get back to normal internet, I'll be able to put the video up as well. So it'll be like on YouTube and other places. So awesome. Well, take care and be in touch, and we'll get together some other time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Enjoy.
The show is produced and engineered by myself, Ben, out of Denver, Colorado. Be sure to subscribe to our social media or wherever you consume content, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Big shout out to Mike Xavier. Thank you so much for letting us use your music as part of our show. Be sure to check him out as well on social media. And stay tuned for the next show.